Welcome to the Asian Women of Power podcast, where your host, Kimchi Chow, shares tips, tools, insights, and strategies on how you too can create the life you love with freedom, power, and choice. Kimchi will show you how to break free of your cultural boundaries and boldly live the life of your dreams. If you are ready to transform your life, please go to www.asianwomenofpowerquiz.com and take the quiz. You may qualify for a free discovery session with Kimchi. And now, here's your host, Kimchi Chow.
Welcome to the Asian Women of Power podcast. I'm glad you are here with us today. In a moment, you will meet our guest panel and get to know them better. I believe you will find their stories fascinating and inspiring. So stay tuned. If you haven't done so, please subscribe to Asian Women of Power podcast and Asian Women of Power YouTube channel. We believe that our messages and stories are worth to share so that you don't feel that you are alone. This is my way to empowering you and the Asian community to speak up, stand up, and show up powerfully and confidently. So let's get started. Today, our guests are from the same organization called Flavor Continues. Let's start out with Bao. Tell us who you are, where you are from, and what led you to do what you do now.
Okay. My name is Bao. I grew up in Portland, Oregon, so I'm from the West Coast. My family is originally from Vietnam. First generation Vietnamese American. I really came to Boston within the last year and a half for school, and that was initially just my goal. My end goal is just to finish school, and kind of start my career that way. Eventually, I just realized it wasn't the career path that I wanted to follow through with, and it led me to this nonprofit that I'm part of called The Flavor Continues. I get to work with two really great folks here, and then I get to work among really great creatives here in the Boston community. I really enjoy the fact that and I get to explore a more creative side of things, and I get to work with folks that really believe in the same mission that we do. And I don't know, I think it's a really great spot to be in, especially with the privilege I do have as my family immigrated here, and we really didn't have these opportunities with a lot of folks that came before me. So I'm really grateful for that.
Thank you for sharing. Jane?
My name is Jin Yi. That's my real name. I was originally born in China, and then we immigrated out of China when I was about 6 years old. Went to Europe for a couple years, and then we went to California, Virginia, New Mexico, and then I eventually landed my undergraduate degree at UCSD in neuroscience and music in California. Then I moved out here for school, same thing as Bao. So for me, my life path started in the street dance style. Started when I was 21. When I was graduating out of college, I realized that there's this huge community that was totally outside of what I would normally experience, within the classroom setting, right? So when I found that, I really fell in love with it. I fell in love with the freedom. Fell in love with how deep the culture was, how impactful dance was for you. And for myself as an individual, I felt like I really grew a lot as a person throughout the journey. Traveled a lot to compete and to train. And then when I came to Boston, because of the love that I had for the culture, Brian and I met up, and he was like, hey, I have this thing called The Flavor Continues. And it's just a slogan right now, but I want to turn it into something. And I was like, oh my God, it'd be so cool to turn it into a nonprofit. And I was like, well, I did a nonprofit when I was an undergrad. Why don't we just make it into a nonprofit now? So that was kind of how everything started.
Thank you. Brian?
My grandparents are Chinese, and then during World War II, they immigrated to Cambodia, which is where my parents are born. And then my parents are Cambodian refugees. They came to the USA in 73, and I'm born in 1990. I got involved with breaking. It's a street dance style when I was 10 years old. It was just kind of something that was prominent in the city I grew up in, which is Lynn, Massachusetts. Uh, and I've been dancing ever since. I've never stopped, all through grade school, all through college. After I graduated, working corporate jobs, like I was still dancing, traveling, competing, performing. Um, I was one of the lucky ones, I guess, that kind of was able to make a name for myself through my dancing and kind of leveling up in that, which kind of is how I built the platform that we have now. And my own slogan while I was building that platform was "The flavor continues," because there's always something next. You know, we finished this event, all right, cool. There's something next. So that was kind of the idea behind it. And then, you know, just doing whatever we do, met up with Jane. And like you said, you know, I had this idea, I had this platform, I had a lot of ideas, but it was just kind of a one-man show until she kind of came along and we actually became a real nonprofit. And then somewhere down the line, Bao came along and kind of, there was a lot of ideas that were just kind of on the shelf. So between Jane and I, we're just a powerhouse of ideas. And then when Bao came along, it kind of, what made the ideas turn into actual something tangible and something able to be experienced. And now this is the team. The flavor continues.
That's wonderful. You do have a complementary skill set, and I'm glad to see that. I'm glad that Bao, you know, get the group in order. Right. All right. So you all three had a college degree. Did you pursue the? I heard that Brian shared that you work in the traditional,
Yeah,
career before,
yeah,
right? So you all have at least a bachelor degree.
yeah.
Yes.
I became an accountant.
Accountant.
Yeah,
Wow.
I
From
don't.
accountant to dance to break dancing. Whoa.
No. I've always braked.
Okay, you always break. Okay.
Always braked since I was 10.
All right. What about Jane? You're a scientist?
Yeah, I'm actually on a pre-med medical track.
Wow.
I just got my master's in Master's of Biological Sciences from Tufts University. So I'll be applying for medical school later. That's still my route right now. So I have like two very different routes where like one of them is like the arts and like dance and everything. And then the other one is my medical route. But I do think the two of them intersect and work along each other really well because they both offer very important values and lessons to be teaching each other. So I'm still on that route. I'm on both routes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So how did your parents feel about your choice of become like a dancer, right? This is full time for you, right? Except Jane. Jane, she's a half and half. She say, "Oh, I'm still in school," but of course, everything will be on hold if she has a competition or something. So how did
Right.
your parents feel about it, and how did you deal with their expectation?
I feel like a lot of folks think that we are just dancers, but I think we do way more than that. We're organizers, we're creatives, we're educators. Like the list goes on, and those skill sets are like translated from our previous, like background, and also our previous traditional like learning settings. I have my degree in public health and health sciences, but that all like really translated into how I approach my artistic endeavors. And initially my parents were not on board. I do have the very traditional parents who do expect you to fill out these roles that are more secure, more like financially stable. But at the end of the day, I think, at least from my experience, like they really do support me if it does make me happy and I am thriving in what I do. I know that not a lot of people get to say that, but it's really something that I was able to experience with my own family, and also like with my own self, like battling my own struggles of really pursuing something that is not seen as normally stable or very kind of radical in some people's viewpoints. So I think that everyone's experience is always going to be different. But you know, we are, again, like I said, we are more than just dancers. Like we do a lot more than that. And I think we do bring a lot of like really great resources and a lot of great experiences to like the general public, just as much as, you know, some other folks in other fields do.
You are
Right.
blessed. You are very blessed, Bao,
Absolutely.
that your
Absolutely.
parents understand and allow you to do that, right?
Yes.
That's
Absolutely.
great. What
Mine,
about
mine was a bit different. Since I started dancing so young, I started dancing when I was 10. But I was also blessed that I had two older brothers that danced also. So one of them's about a year and a half older than me. The other one's about 4, maybe 5 years older than me. Um, so obviously at first they hated it. They thought it was the worst idea ever, which in some ways is kind of true, I guess. But I don't know. I never really let that stop me from dancing because like that was mine. That was what was mine. But at the same time, I understood that I had to also fulfill, I guess, their own requirements because I'm living under their house and they're financially supporting me at the time. So, you know, that's why I went to school. That's why I went to college. You know, those were things that they deemed to be necessary. Um, and while I was kind of still dependent on them, I had to fulfill that. So, but letting go of dance was never an option. Uh, I don't know. It was just, I guess it's also kind of the upbringing. I was a bit of a rebellious child. So it was kind of just like, well, I'm still going to get my schoolwork done, but I'm going to get it done after practice. You don't want me to go to practice. You're not going to give me a right to practice. That's fine. I'm going to walk. Um, uh, I'll save up my own money to go to these competitions and such. I'm buying when I started traveling out more, not just dancing in Massachusetts, but even starting to travel out and compete and perform elsewhere. But then as the timeline goes on, maybe when I started being into my early to late teens, it was kind of like, well, I just came home and I just made some money because I performed and I got paid to perform, or I just won this competition. But it slowly builds up because it first happens, and obviously as Asian parents, oh, you just came home with $100, like, you know, they celebrate that, and then, but that first time is always just the beginning, and then it builds up because obviously you still dance and you still practice and you are getting better in your dancing. So then you won one, and maybe a few months later you come back, I won another one. Oh, I got booked to do another show. All the while, I'm still in school. You know, I leave the house early in the morning with my big backpack with both all my books and my homework and a change of clothes to practice in, and I get back late at night, and then I wake up early in the morning, go do it again. So they see the the sacrifice that you put in so you could keep dancing, but at the same time, you acknowledge that they themselves have made a sacrifice for you to have, you know, the opportunities that we have here. So it's like, okay, cool, like we can play both sides of that. It doesn't have to be one or the other, at least up until that point. Later on down the line, which I feel like I already kind of crossed that line, you do kind of have to decide if it's going to be one or the other, but that's for later.
Jane?
Yeah. So in my situation, my parents are still not supportive. I'm still combating that every day. My dad actually just withheld his support and decided to completely financially not support me anymore in terms of like what I'm doing. Cause like right now, you know, like after the master's degree, I had a job for a little while. And then after the temporary like position that I had, I was kind of like unemployed for a certain period of time. So, but I guess like from my parents' point of view, they're like, well, if you have time to go and do all these art stuff, if you have time to go and like, you know, dance and everything, then why don't you have time to go and study more? Why don't you have time to go and like pursue this medicine job or whatever? But I think for me, this is something that I've been dealing with since I was very little. And I've decided that this is a passion that I am not willing to give up just because it's something that's very, very, very dear to me. So no matter how much someone else says, you know, like, oh, I don't believe in this vision that you have. I don't believe in this capability that you have. I don't believe that you can do this in the future. This is not the right path that you're going down. for me, I feel like I just know so strong in my heart that this is something that I want to do, and I know it's going to help in the future, and I know it's going to help medicine, and I know it's going to be something that will be tangible, even if like right now it doesn't feel like it. Then I just kind of push past all those obstacles. And it's hard. Like I think like there's definitely days, you know, where I feel like I can't do it anymore, or maybe I should just like give everything up and then do like, you know, like find support somewhere, or you know, days when I feel like it's like I just don't know what I'm doing with my life. But I think like having that compass and knowing that this is what you really want to do, I think that definitely helps.
I think while you traveling to that journey, right? One part you want security and you want approval from your parents, right? On the other side, you you want to follow your dreams, your purpose, your passion, because that's what life is about, right? That's what make us human. That's what make us feel alive, right? And I applaud you for doing that. But that is your journey. You have to go through it, and so don't give up, right? Don't give up. Find a way to work it out. To let your parent know that you still love them, and all you want is to be happy, and doing what you're doing will bring you happiness, right? Eventually they will hear it.
I think that's really cool that you said that, because I found that to be kind of what happened with me. And you know, like obviously our parents and what they've gone through coming to this country and such, and starting a new family, starting a new life here, uh, their their big thing is, well, we push you to go into these particular fields, whether it's the medical field or become an accountant or become a lawyer or a doctor, like those high prestigious statuses in society, because they believe, or at least what they're used to from where they came from, that those particular statuses brings a sort of standard of living that brings you your happiness. So, but then for them to see me and do what I do when I go see them, I'm closest to my parents now than I've ever been in my whole life. And like I haven't touched accounting in like 5 years. I all my living kind of just comes from freelancing and from my art. And that's a gamble to take, especially right now with kind of everything going on. But for them to see like that I'm making it work, and I am resourceful, and I am building things up, um, slowly but surely, and things are kind of going into the direction that I speak of it on, um, and they see that I am genuinely happy with my life. And it turns out that it's like they didn't understand this path that I was taking before, but it at this point it's kind of like, but I got to the destination you wanted me to get to. I didn't take the path you wanted me to get. You wanted me to be happy, and you wanted me to like feel fulfilled and you know, live with purpose. But you thought I was going to get that being an accountant. I forewent all of that, and you didn't understand it. But I'm at that same destination point that you wanted me to be at. But I came here doing what I wanted to do. But at the same time, you taught me better. So, you know, that compass that guided me on my journey when I stepped away from the path you wanted me to be on, like my parents molded that compass that I followed.
Yeah, that's great that you recognize that, and I think it's important to still show respect to your parents, even though you disagree with them, because of course, you know, that's how we program it, how we have been programmed, right? Coming from another country, right? We come here for security, right? um, and yeah, keep reminding them that we come here, we live in America is for freedom, and freedom to each person is very different, right? We follow our dreams and do what we love. That's freedom. And yeah, you know, I think I'm a parent myself. I have two adult children, and I don't tell them what to do. I, you know, I support them if they they tell me that they want to do something, I always like ask them to think it through, right? And help them see things differently. And at the end of the day, it's their life, it's their choice. Okay. Bao, so you start out as a dancer,
I did.
right? And yeah, now your role is behind the scene, behind the camera, technical support, and you name it. You make the thing work. You make this organization work. Did you miss dancing and competing?
I still compete, I still dance. It's not like I've like left it behind. I think that I was just able to increase my capacity of things I'm able to do, and it's even become more fulfilling for me. Like I like to believe I am a jack of all trades. I like to think that I can do everything, and I will try to accomplish as much of it as I can. But at the end, like truly my approach to things is very multidisciplinary, and I'm always a student, so I'm willing to learn on how to do something. But like I will always go back to my roots as a dancer, like the things I've learned through dancing and the things I've learned through either going out to all these like jams and events or competing or what have you. Like those things I take into my approach when it comes to like the nonprofit itself. I think luckily I get to be the creative director of the nonprofit, which allows me a lot of freedom in what I do. And having all that freedom comes with, like learning how to be intentional with your artwork and with our messages and what we put out into like the world. So I think all of that has been driven by what I've learned through dancing.
Wonderful. So if there's a choice, if somebody, let's say, later on your organization grow big, you can afford somebody to do the background work, would you prefer to be a dancer full time with joining Brian and Jane?
I think I do everything kind of full time. But I find a lot of joy in the work that I do, like the nitty gritty work. Even if we do have like the manpower or the people power for it, I think that I will still always enjoy it, and I take a lot of pleasure in knowing that like I was able to contribute a lot into like the growth of the nonprofit and the growth of it in the future. But if I were to do dancing full time, of course, I would love to do that. That would be amazing, and be able to have like a source of income. Yes, absolutely. But like we have a lot of responsibility to the people.
Thank you for sharing. Jane, in 2018, you were the chapter director of Everybody Dance Now. And the intention for that organization is to uplift and educate youth in social emotional learning. So, share with us the benefit of dancing and how it would help with the social and emotional learning in youth.
Yeah. So actually, funny story. Everybody Dance Now, I'm not affiliated with them anymore. They're still a really great organization, but we decided to move kind of the schools that we were previously operating in under our branch. So now our nonprofit, the Flavor Continues, we have 3 different teachers in 6 different schools that teach social emotional learning through the art of street dance. I think it's really SEL is, social emotional learning. So it divides into like 5 different ways that you can think about it, which is self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, social management, and then relationship building skills. Um, Dance really comes in because it's something that, like as you are moving, as you're finding out who you are physically, you also find out who you are emotionally, right? If you get frustrated with choreography, then that tells you something like you can be aware of that and say, oh, maybe I'm a little bit frustrated right now, but then how do you go about managing it? And then you figure out how you manage it through, all right, maybe practicing more for me, then maybe I'll be less frustrated, or maybe it's better for me to work with other people, and that's how I become less frustrated. Or for example, in Crump specifically, we teach Crump in a few schools right now. We have these things called sessions. And what a session is a group of people that all dances together and one person goes in at a time. So you have a group of people and then one person dances and then that one person goes out, someone else goes in, right? So in a session, the point of it is to uplift people, to respect people, to give them the space of freedom and expression. And when that one person goes in, like we can teach the aspects of respect. Like what does it mean to show respect to somebody? What does it mean to allow them the space to express themselves fully? What does it mean to create a safe space so that people can express themselves without the feeling of being judged, right? So then you teach the kids, like, oh, you can like hype them up, you can you can like yell at them like, yeah, let's go, and then everyone gets really into it and everybody really loves it. And then the kids really find out a way of, oh, this is what it feels like to be supported. This is how I can support other people. This is what it means to respect people, give them my time, have them share with us their time, right? Which is also very important. How do you take and how do you receive? And those are like just like very few lessons that I think dance offers. But another really cool thing that I think about street dance in particular and why it's so important is because it came from these neighborhoods that these kids are in. We operate within the Title I school. So, within Roxbury and Dorchester right now in Boston, like the average income over there is like 35 grand a year. So usually either at poverty line or below poverty line. You're working with like the Black African American Latinx community, right? But the thing is, these dances came from there. And when you tell the kids, the dances that we're teaching you, it came from your neighborhood. Your brother used to do this. Your dad used to do this. Your grandpa used to do this in the backyard. It gives them a real sense of empowerment because they know that this is something that their culture have created and their culture have cultivated here. And that gives them so much power and so much pride. And I think that's what's really important about street dance. Because when you take ballet and modern, all of that, and jazz and everything, you go into these schools, they may take a lot out of it, but they don't necessarily get that heartfelt connection with the true culture and the true meaning of the art.
Wow, that's deep. It's really deep, and that's wonderful that you do that. You teach dance not just for an entertainment or a physical workout, but it's also connecting them and honor their history, right? Where's their parent coming from, and the dancing history, the art. That's wonderful, Jane. Brian, tell us about entering ShaoLynn and what's your role
Entering
in it.
ShaoLynn. I've been a part of various already pre-established breaking events in Massachusetts. I kind of got brought on board first as the master of ceremony, and then through being the master of ceremony, and they kind of saw how a lot of people gravitated towards me and really kind of respected my values and my opinion and my just how I saw the whole game in general. But all that was kind of built up through me as a competitor and me as a performer for like more than a decade prior to that. But working with these different groups and being a consultant with them, it's never your peer vision. It's you collaborating with them, and at the end of the day, they have the final word. So it was cool because I was able to have the voice of the community be heard, because my voice is the voice of the community. It's not just this is what I want to do and I'm going to do it. It's this is what the community would like. This is what the community needs. These are the dynamics that have been going on in the community for X amount of years, or this is what's going on right now. So this is something that could address that. This is something that could be very meaningful and impactful right now with everything that's going on. That's how I operate when I curate events. So because all of those events I was helping consult with were all collegiate events, I thought it was super important to have an event that is not collegiate at all. It's completely grassroots. It's completely by the community for the community. And that's what entering ShaoLynn is. And entering ShaoLynn, I mean, as Asians, we think of Shaolin, we think of, Shaolin Kung Fu, but I'm from Lynn, Massachusetts, Lynn. So you can see when I spell Shaolin, it's ShaoLynn. So it has like it has like almost three meanings to it. In the hip hop community, um, hip hop has, a love affair with kung fu and the old Shaolin movies. If you listen to things like Wu-Tang Clan and such, and they reference Long Island as Shaolin. So throughout a lot of their tracks and their discography, you can hear them shouting out Shaolin, and I think that's kind of where a lot of the people in the hip hop community got familiar with the terminology of Shaolin. Also, my grandparents do come from China. Um, my last name is Lim, Lim, which if you write it in Chinese character is the same character you would write if you write Shaolin in Chinese as well. So being that last names were a tribal thing, I have the blood of Shaolin in my veins. But at the same time, I'm from Lynn, Massachusetts. So it's like too many, it's like hip hop, my actual ancestry, and also the city I'm born and raised in, all in one. And that's what makes entering Shaolin. And it's for the people. Um, it's for the people, and it's strictly just by people that come from within the community. It's not an outside organization. It's not an outside entity that's come in. When I do these events are done for, the people that saw me grow up in the scene. And now, instead of me being the little kid competing that they saw grow up and kind of climb the ranks and such, now it's me putting it on for them so that more people can kind of come and can enjoy and can build together, or for that next person to come and climb up the ranks as well. But it's a peer vision without any outside entity, or if there is an outside entity that kind of comes in, whether they want to be a sponsorship or a vendor or work with us in any way, it's very well known that, like, we are the residents of this community. If you're coming in, you're a tourist, and that we're not going to change anything here to appease to the tourists. We're going to keep it very focused on the people in the community here at home, because like Jane said, the community is full of those that don't come from very prominent backgrounds and such. I mean, that's why these street dance styles have flourished so much. This is a dance that was started by Black people from super impoverished places, from New York, and all different impoverished groups have kind of added their own things to it afterwards, and this is what kind of makes it so powerful. Like I said, my parents are refugees. Refugees don't move into the country to affluent towns, you know? So that's kind of what makes me honoring my hometown and my ancestry, and to do this for the community. That's what makes it so powerful. That's what gives it the impact that it has, because it's not an outsider coming in trying to do something for you. It's like the people from the scene see me grow up, and they see me climb up the ranks, and now they see me change my position from the competitor, the performer and such, to becoming maybe a master of ceremony, to then turning it around and saying, well, this isn't my peer vision. Like, I want to give you guys something different, to actually giving them something different. And that's what's made it grow so fast over the years. We're in year 5 now, and the anticipation for what entering Shaolin is going to be for the next one is at an all-time high, where we had to change venues because there was too many people coming in, and we had to adjust the event because there was too many people. And this whole time, I thought it was just going to be a nice little small local event, but that's entering Shaolin is the event that kind of gave the Flavor Continues its platform, I believe, because entering Shaolin has been going on for about 5 years, but the Flavor Continues, we're still less than a year old. So the nonprofit, it has kind of been reverse engineered. Most people, when they start an organization, they get the business part of it all done, and then they need to get it out to the masses so they know about it. The masses already knew about us because of work like that over the years. Now it's us reverse engineering it, making sure the business side of things is all done and said, and I guess getting the word out more to outside of our immediate street dance audience, such as, the Asian Women of Power podcast.
So does Asian have a type of dance that American will recognize?
To be honest, I don't know, and I don't think so. I mean, there's a lot of very traditional dances, you know, but it's not as, I guess, dynamic as we're used to. And I mean, I could absolutely be wrong. Excuse me if I've spoken ignorantly and naively on that topic, but I think in Asian cultures, their form of movement has more been things like kung fu, or if there it is dances, it's more, you know, I'm thinking of, you know, in Cambodia with the apsara, where it's very hands, and it's almost like it's elegant, it's almost like very transient. It's not there. I don't think there's too much of movement that corresponds with American dance, where it's sporadic and it's very upbeat, and it's flashy almost. It's super eye catching. I think the dances in Asian cultures are a lot more contextual based, where it's like, well, this is more of like almost a ritualistic dance. These are dances that are done for these particular types of ceremonies and such. Whereas for American dances, it's expressive. It's this is what I'm feeling, and boom, here it is. And it's a lot more sporadic. I don't think there's too many things in Asian culture that's too sporadic, to be honest. Again,
Yeah.
could be speaking naively and ignorantly on that, and I apologize if I am.
I think your observation is right on. I noticed that too. I think Asian, because of because of the culture, right? We are very conservative. So our dance is either using the hands gesture or maybe upper part, you know, the eye and the head and upper part or the foot, right? But not the whole body, not shaking the hip like the what do you call it? You know, I don't know. I cannot say the Cuban, but you know those are Hispanic people, right? And breaking the whole thing like African people. So yeah, I think it's based on the culture. The type of dance that we invent or do is based on our culture and what we think or how we express ourselves, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Bao, what were your biggest challenges that you faced personally and professionally as Asian American dancer?
As an Asian American dancer.
Yeah, or
Um,
Asian American, personally and professionally.
I feel like some of the challenges that I had to get through was deciding if this was the right path for me. Like I said, I came here for school. That was my intention coming to Boston, and that was originally just the plan that I had. You know, going forward with my life, and I think to decide that it wasn't going to fulfill me for the rest of my years, like that's a lot of like internal turmoil. That's deciding if, you know, like I can leave all this behind, and knowing that, you know, my parents did support me in this way, and like that's feeling like it's going to waste. A lot of folks do feel like, you know, the upbringing that they had was in order for you to get to a certain point in your life, and if you don't get there, you're a failure. You're not going to be able to you know, have this life that you really envisioned. And I think, you know, when I was going through that transition with school and just like leaving that part of my life, like closing that chapter, I think that was very challenging in terms of like of coming to like coming to a point that I felt like there was closure, and that like I'm ready to move forward with doing like the artistic thing like full time. You know, in a sense, like it does feel like I really became like my true self, which like ultimately is very rewarding, and something that I every day am very grateful for. But it it takes a lot to get here. And like I said, my parents are now very supportive of what I do, but that's not to say that they were were very upset at first, and they didn't see where I was like kind of going with this nonprofit, or like just going with like on my creative journey. But it comes to a point where you have to just say that you're ready to take that leap of faith. And luckily I'm able to do that, but there have been like tons of challenges along the way. I just don't really like to dwell on them for too long, because I feel like I have to keep looking forward, and there are new challenges to take on.
I understand. Yeah, it is a challenge. It's every decade that you are staying alive and trying to survive. You're trying to figure out what are you supposed to do, right? Is this your purpose, right? And I think most people, some will think about it, think some will have that kind of question, and they're thinking about it. Is this my purpose to do this? But most of people, they never think about it. They are just like, I would say it's like sleeping dead or walking dead or whatever, walking dead. Like they are walking, but inside they are
Yeah.
dead. They are not aware of what they're doing, right? They have no more passion
Yeah,
in
they just
life.
accepted, like, the status quo and just do things because
Right.
that's just the way that things have been done.
Yeah. And yeah, I would recommend that you continue asking that question. And the way that you can find out the question, the way that you can answer that question of, is this what I'm supposed to do, is your answer. Your answer is this, am I still happy doing this? If you are happy, and if you stay true to who you are, then that's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
But if you, at some time down the road, you're you changing, your interest has changed, then move on to try new thing.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
also want to say that, we don't have to be stuck doing certain things for the rest of our lives. Like, I think a lot of folks are very wary of change, and they are very hesitant to take on like a new hobby, or like a new career path, or whatever. But it's like, if you don't take these chances and you don't take like these leaps of faith, like, you're just going to end up where you are for a really long time, and that's just like time wasted. But if you have these opportunities, I would highly encourage you to take these chances. Explore different avenues of things that you're interested in, even if you're bad at them. Like, there's no, like, what are you going to lose by trying it out, or what are you going to lose by really investing yourself in it? At least you get to say that you did it, and might be really fulfilling.
Yeah. Jane.
So challenge as an Asian American woman, right? Oof. I think, starting from when I was small, I think the very first challenge I remember thinking is, like, you have this idea of what an Asian American woman is supposed to be like. And it's supposed to be this person that is very, what is that word? Like, like, you're very quiet, you're very reserved. You shouldn't really speak up very much. You don't really talk to authority. You don't talk back to anyone. You dress feminine, you act feminine in some way, shape, or form. And I think ever since I was little, I realized I was not that. I grew up being a tomboy. I grew up liking, like, what is labeled as guy stuff more than girl stuff. I grew up liking to dress in baggy clothes and like loose jeans, as opposed to everyone else who was wearing like tank tops and short shorts. And I think like that trajectory just continued going on for the rest of my life. Whether it was, fighting against like the dress code that the Asian American woman has, or like the reservedness that the Asian American woman has. And I remember, I think the part that I really, I remember I was talking with one of my professors, so like what happened was we had this one project that was going on. I'm supposed to be doing like a research project on Asian American mental health, and it was like a public health type of thing. I was doing my master's thesis on it, and I went up to my like advisor, and I had gotten up to the point where I was speaking up a little bit, but then I felt myself, I got afraid of that. And I remember I asked her, like, oh, am I doing the right thing as like a mentee? You know, I don't want to be like stepping on your toes as a mentor and everything like that. And then she was like, but you do realize that if you're a white man, you wouldn't even be asking that question. And I was like, oh, that's fascinating. And I think that was when I kind of realized, like, there, at least for me, is the fact that I was put in this bubble. I think I subconsciously kind of started to adopt that bubble. Like, I didn't really speak up to authority. I was really hesitant on raising my hand in class. I was scared to talk with my professors. I was afraid of being able to interact with adults because I didn't really know how to do so. And I think it was through dance, and it was through the power and the confidence that dance kind of gave me, and being involved in the street scene, when I started being, you know, thinking to myself, oh, I actually do have a voice. Maybe it's okay if I speak my voice right now. Maybe it's okay if I, you know, talk about how I feel or express how I feel. And there's actually a group of people that's willing to like listen. And there's a group of people that's willing to like take my words. And it's okay to disagree with other people, and it's okay to disagree with adults, and it's okay to talk back to your professors, because that's how new ideas are generated. But I think that for a long time was a very big challenge for me, is knowing that it's okay to speak out loud, and it's okay, totally okay to disagree. And if I'm honest, it's still kind of a challenge right now. Like, I find myself sometimes, you know, hesitating or feeling like I don't want to be too disagreeable with somebody, or feeling like, oh, I don't have the right of the voice, or, you know, I don't have a place to say what I want to say. But I think it's a constant reminder that I have to give myself, like, no, like, if I am given a place on this earth, and if I am placed in a position that I am, then I deserve to say what I want to say.
Boom.
Bravo, bravo. Okay, Brian.
Can you say that question one more time, please?
Yes, sir. What were the biggest challenge that you have faced personally or professionally as Asian American dancer?
I think just the identity crisis, because especially being the first generation born in the USA, that I'm growing up in a household where inside the house, it's this is Chinese culture, this is Cambodian culture, and then I go to school and this is American culture, and then but to be honest, kind of the way growing up, like I hated the household and I hated school. So it's like, well, this is Chinese culture, this is Cambodian culture. I'm like, well, I kind of hate all of that. Everything is an obligation. Everything's pushed on you. There's no choice of your own whatsoever. Then you go to school, it feels the same way. Like everything's pushed on you. You have to do this. You have to do this. Everything was just rules. Um, and you know, traditional Asian households are super strict already to begin with. And then I stumble across something like hip hop and breaking, and you know, and you learn about that, and like I said before, you know, that's Black culture. Okay, but then now the dance form also, and when you go to these events, it's a lot of Black people, it's a lot of Latino people. Um, to be Asian at that time when I came into that scene was to be a minority in that, you know, dance space. Um, so it was just like that identity crisis, where it's like, well, I feel more at home with that crowd. If there was a room full of Chinese people, a room full of Cambodian people, a room full of Americans, and a room full of people that love hip hop, I want to be in the room with people that love hip hop, because that's the room where I feel at home. That's the room that I resonate with. So there's that identity crisis where it's like, well, you know, like, oh, you're maybe you can't speak your native tongue as well, or maybe you're not so knowledgeable on the traditions and such, like you're not Asian enough, and maybe you get that from like your elders, your grandmother, your aunt or something, you know, especially at the big family gatherings and such, where it's almost like, wow, like I'm not Asian enough, or something. And then you go to school, and you know, you're kind of treated a bit like an alien because you're with all the white kids. And then you go to these dance spaces, and like you're learning how to dance, but Black culture and Latino culture got dance in their culture. They've got dance. They got music all the time since they're young and such. I didn't grow up in a household with music. I started listening to music only when I started dancing. So for me, it wasn't even just learning, like, at first when you see breaking, like, you want to learn the moves, it's cool, but then it's like, okay, well, it's not just the moves, like there's music to it, and it's not background music, like it's done to the music, because music is the mother of dance. So then you learn the cultural context to it. But at the same time, looking back at it, I believe that I believe every gift is also a curse. So being that that was, I guess, my curse early on with the identity crisis, and then to dig deeper into it and ask yourself those questions like you were talking about before, and to not be afraid to give yourself the hard truth of those answers to those questions. um I feel like that's actually became my greatest strength now, where it's like I'm very sure of my identity. I think growing up, and even a lot of times in society today, they want you to be one or the other. You got to either be right, or you got to be left, or you got to be this, or you got to be that. They try to throw you into all these labels, but that's the beauty of today, and that's the beauty of the generation that we're in now, where it's like, no, 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 that's not the case. We're creatives. I've created this new space. I've created my space in that space, um, and I've proven my worth here, time and time again. And shoot, you're new to this space. I've been in this space longer than you. Like, I remember when you first came in here. So it's definitely a long journey, um, but I think kind of that identity crisis early on, and then you know learning so much of it, um, but learning so much on all sides. Because like I've done my fair share to really learn a lot and study Chinese culture and Chinese history, and I've done my fair share to learn Cambodian culture and Cambodian history and American culture and American history. But I also did the same thing learning hip hop culture and hip hop history, because to me, it's just learning culture. Growing up in America, it was like, well, this is what our culture is. This is Chinese culture, this is Cambodian culture. But then when you find hip hop, is it's not just the dance moves, it's not just the music, it's not just the way to dress. It's a whole culture. The only difference is hip hop culture is global, and it's not bound by a geographic border like a Chinese culture would be, like Cambodian culture would be, like American culture would be. But that's why I think, a time like today where hip hop culture is such a dominant, thriving force in the world, um, makes something like our mission so powerful.
Drop the mic, huh?
Yeah.
Yes, I understand the identity crisis, and I experienced it as well in the past, and that's what led me to do what I do. I'm I'm a coach, right? I'm a coach. I focus more on working with Asian American men and women, mostly women, Asian American women, first and second generation, to help them speak up, show up, and stand up powerfully and confidently, to let them know who they are, and to let them know that they don't have to choose, choose one or the other. They don't, they are Asian American. They are not Asian, and they're not American, right? So, like what you recognize early on, that yes, you don't have to choose, you integrate them, right? You integrate those culture in your life,
Right.
so that you feel comfortable, you feel that you are at home no matter where you are at. I think it's adaptation is number one key in here,
Right.
right? Wherever we live, we need to adapt, otherwise we're gonna die.
I would always say, like, I'm not a one-way street, I'm a traffic circle.
Like a round, so
Yeah.
round.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you got all those different streets coming into that center.
Okay,
Some people want you to be a one-way street, where it's like I'm a traffic circle. So
traffic circle, that's
uh,
cool. All right, so So what do you know now that you wish you knew 5 or 10 years ago? Let's start with Bao.
Um, let's see. 5 or 10 years ago. Um, I wish I knew that we can just create unapologetically. It's it I feel like it's one thing to create and put it out into the world. It's another thing to do it proudly, to do it confidently, to do it for the sake of art, for the sake of our culture, for the sake of hip hop. Like to put these things out there and know that they're meant to take up this space. 5, 10 years ago, I was very hesitant in my work. I was really critical of everything that I did, because I didn't know if it would live up to certain expectations. I didn't know if this is worth people looking at it, if it's worth like people understanding what I did and why I did it. But now I create things for the sake of creating, curating spaces, organizing events, doing whatever else that I do. Like I do it because I know that this is what I'm meant to do, and that I do it unapologetically, you know. And I'm proud to be able to do that, with like such really like a really great team, because we get to have that freedom to work alongside like the community, and and we get to work with students, with the youth, and with our elders, getting that knowledge from them and be able to be a bridge to gap the generations. Like we are in a very special spot with our work, and to do so is a privilege. But I wish I knew I was able to do that like a long time ago, because I don't know where my art would be, but I wish I knew that a little bit sooner.
Thank you. Jane?
Something I wish I knew 5 or 10 years ago. That life is unpredictable. Your truth will change every day, and everything will be okay at the end of the day. And even if you go through lows, even if you go through highs, they're all going to be temporary. And you don't know when the next journey is going to take you. You don't know where it's going to take you. You don't know when it's going to start. But I think so long as you continue to live the truth that you are in that day, I think everything works out. Yeah.
Wow, speak like a sage. All right, Brian.
I think just uh, the importance of really believing in yourself. I think, especially growing up Asian American, where more so often, especially if you're pursuing something outside of the status quo of what your elders or your parents and your family has kind of placed upon you and such, you can have a lot of doubt in what you do, and or if not even the doubt in what you do, kind of just the long term possibilities of what you do. Whereas, like, okay, like I was still in school, but I was still going out to compete every weekend. But in my head, I'm thinking, well, when I'm done with school, this is all said and done because I'm gonna go and I'm gonna get a big boy job. Um, so it was like I didn't really believe at that time that this was something that would extend far beyond it when I became a real adult. Um, but now, if I was able to go back, and I do this a lot when I teach younger students as well, is really just get them to believe in themselves and um, really get them to honor what makes them special, and whatever it is, because everybody has something that's special to them. Like, and I'll always tell them, like, Kimchi, whatever gets you a gold medal is not going to get me a gold medal. Your gold is different than my gold. So, you should focus on whatever special thing it is that's going to get you whatever gold medal it is that you're going to get. And whatever gold medal it is that I'm going to get is different. Whatever gold medal is Jane's going to get is different. Whatever gold medal Bao's going to get is different. find whatever that unique thing it is that gets you your gold medal, and just go in that direction. Maybe you don't know what's going to come out of it, but I mean, you're not supposed to. Like, you never have all the answers until you get your test back, but you have to stick with it until you get your test back. And if there's anything I learned in school, just because you did bad on a test, don't mean it's over. But just to really believe in yourself, because especially as a dancer too, you know, um, you can see self-doubt in your movement. You can see low self-esteem in your movement. You could have a small, very simple movement done with the utmost confidence, and it'll be way more impactful than such a dynamic, difficult movement done with insecurity. You know, in dance, we say it's not what you do, it's how you do it. And I think just it's so simple, right? Just to believe in yourself. It sounds like something corny you heard on a Disney Channel movie. Believe in yourself, like, but it's true. Those things are true. Like, believe in yourself. Be in the moment. Follow your passion. Those are the corny things we hear in the movies until you get to a certain age where you can really understand the importance of it. But those aren't really things you can teach. Those are only things that you can actually share by leading by example, which is why I think, again, you know, the mission that we're on is so important, because we lead by example.
So you're talking about the body chat, body gesture, body movement, that when you look at somebody who dance, you can tell whether this person is confident or not.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's why I know Jane talked about the social emotional learning earlier in this
Mm-hmm.
interview. You know, it all connects together. Like, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
dancing at first, obviously, when people first see it, and when I first got involved into it, and maybe Jane and Bao can speak for themselves on this one. Um, you know, I got into it because it was flashy, just for the entertainment purposes of it. But then, like I said, on my journey, when I started studying the culture and the context to the dance and what it was and what it stood for, that's when you get into you know, the social emotional learning parts of it. That's when you really get into the deep end of things. And I think it actually parallels learning about Asian culture. You know, you can invite somebody outside of the culture in to a New Year celebration, and okay, well, this is what the culture is. Okay, well, what's the context of all this? Why is it that we have, I don't know, like these moon cakes? Why is it that it's supposed to be good luck to eat fish and noodles? Why is it that we have the incense and we pray to the ancestors and we have the feast before them and we don't touch the food until a certain amount of time afterwards? Like, why is it that we do those things? And to understand those practices in context, I just took that same approach when learning about Asian culture. Well, actually, I learned about it through hip hop culture first. And after I learned about it in hip hop culture, I took that same mental approach and I applied it to then learn about my Asian culture. But for me, I learned that principle from hip hop first, not from Asian culture. But that's why I think it's so powerful to kind of pull it all together. I believe dance, through dancing and really being uh, a person in your craft, you learn everything you need to learn to be successful at whatever it is you want to do, because you learn discipline, you learn persistence and reflection, and you have to give those harsh truths to yourself. Otherwise, you're not going to grow as a dancer. And then take that, parallel that into your own everyday life. The world is yours.
Next, what's your personal motto, Bao?
My personal motto is to create and destroy, and do it again with what you learned. I take this approach in all the things I do. I think just because, like, you just have to keep creating. You just have to keep putting your shit out there. Oh, sorry, your things out there. And you know, that's what we're meant to do as creatives. We're meant to put art into this world, and we're meant to put our whole selves into what we do. And I just don't believe in, in holding on to something that is not going to be impactful for your own self and your own self like growth. I just don't think that I'm a hoarder when it comes to my art either. Like I like to, put my artwork out there, but there's things that I like, things I don't like. I'll take what I like and I'll apply it again to something different. And I think that's how I've been able to really grow in like the crafts that I've been really invested in. And that's also just like something I've been applying to just like normal everyday life too. Like, with the transition of like coming from a very heavily medical background to like the arts world, I was able to understand that like, this doesn't serve my purpose anymore, and that's okay. I'm able to move on to something else because I took what I learned from that and applied it to something else that I'm more passionate about, that I'm really deep into. And, that's just how I like to approach a lot of the things I do in my life.
Thanks. Jane?
I think my motto has to be stay naive, stay foolish. And the reason why I say that is because I feel like through naivety is how you find new ways of doing things. I think too many times there are, these ways and these paths that are quote unquote set out for us, but I don't think they're necessarily the way. Or you'll have people, when I was an undergrad trying to do, bring an event back to what it used to be. We had like 800 members and we're trying to get this event to be back up to the 3,000 number of people, right? There was everyone that was telling me like, oh, there's no way you're going to hold an internship and do your classes and also do this coordinating at the same time. And then, but when I tried it, and when I tried all these options that everyone was saying, oh, you can't do that, or you're not going to be able to do that, or, oh, this is going to be a dead end, that was actually what led me to success. And I think it's really important to follow your instincts. It's important to constantly explore new paths, even when other people are saying, oh, this isn't a good idea. But if you know in your heart it's a good idea, you should just follow that idea. And I think that's something that I always live by. One of my dreams in the future is to have a hospital, but then imagine you have a hospital and then next to the hospital is a community center. And the patient first goes in and they see this community center that's filled with people dancing or people doing art. And let's say you're a diabetic patient and you're like, wow, I can exercise with other people that are like me. I can get active with other people who also have diabetes. And then you first meet a psychologist, and then you see an art therapist to discover which one might be better or might be more right for you. And then you eventually go and see your doctor after that. It's such a wholesome care that this one individual receives that's more holistic, as opposed to just the traditional ways of medicine where you just go in and get your physical examination seen, but then you neglect the spiritual, you neglect the mental, the emotional side of it. And that's one of the dreams I really want to do. And I've heard people that are like, I don't really know if that's a great idea, or there's a lot of people that kind of think about it, but for me, that's something that I really want to pursue. And that's something for me that I will continuously want to pursue. And I think holding on to the phrase stay naive, stay foolish, continue to do what you want against the grains. I think that's how you get new ideas out, and that's how you explore all these things that the world has for you.
That's wonderful. And I support that ideas, Jane. I think that's creative, and it's empowering. It's just very holistic, because people stuck in hospital, they need to work out, they need to move their bodies, not just bodies, it's emotional and spiritual as well, right? So how do we do that? By dancing, by do some breaking, right? and also, yeah, I think maybe they already started. I think there was some community, maybe not in United States, but in another country, where they have retirement home next to a daycare home, so that the children can come and play with elderly, with people who are retired, because these are two extreme generation, right? They need each other. The retired generation can teach the young one something, and the young one bring youth and naive and things like that. It's like a human touch.
Comes full circle.
yeah, I come to full circle. So I would support that. If I see there's such thing like that, and they asking for like investment in it, I probably will invest into that idea as well.
You let me
So
know, I'll do it too.
yes, I need that. I need to book. I need to reserve a place for me in the next 20 years or so. All right. So Brian, what's your motto?
Well, funny thing is, my motto was, or my motto is, the flavor continues. That's how we got the name for the nonprofit. Is because that was something I was saying for mm, maybe 3 or 4 years before we became an actual nonprofit. Um, and like I said before, it was just there was always something coming up. So like there was always something next. But there's a couple of different layers to the meaning of the flavor continues as well. Um, Again, I'm a big hip hop fan, and there's an artist who passed away by the name of Nipsey Hussle, and he had a slogan, "The marathon continues." And what the marathon stood for was just kind of um, doing what's best for the long term. So, you don't want to, you could run a marathon and you could be first place for the first few miles, but can you keep it up all 26? So, the importance of pacing yourself and not rushing into things and just kind of finishing the mission. So, it's also a play off of The Marathon Continues. But also, as dancers, we always talk about flavor. Like, what's your flavor like? And I think we kind of brought it up a little bit earlier. Was like your unique touch to things. What's your Midas touch to it? Like, what gets you your gold? And as dancers, like we call that our flavor. Um, but then also, if you think about it from a culinary perspective, where it's like we could all be in the same kitchen with the same ingredients, and we could all chef up something completely different, depending, like everybody, the way that you cook has their own particular flavor to things. We could all make the same dish, and we could make it all with different flavors. Maybe I want to use a bit more of this ingredient and not use those ingredients at all, and you might choose to use those ingredients in your dish. So just that curating process. But you kind of take all those things, like I said, it's the traffic circle of all those things coming together, and that to me is what the flavor continues stands for.
Yeah, to to be honest with you, when I first heard the flavors continue, automatically I say, oh, they must be related to food. Right? It's like flavors continue. Oh, they must own some food packaging company or food processing company or something.
We're a different
Yeah,
we're a
that's what
different
the
type of
flavors.
flavor.
Oh, yes. That's yeah, very interesting and unique. So, what is your proudest moment to date? Jane, proudest moment.
Uh, um, I feel like for me, it's not like one single moment that I have. It's probably the little moments that I have where I have like breakthroughs, or little moments where I would be stuck in a mindset and then find out a different way of doing something, or being able to like expand out of my boundaries. And I think it varies from day to day. Like some days it's really just like waking up and doing something. Some days it's like, oh, cleaning my room. Some days it's like, oh, we just landed a grant. Other days it's like, oh, I'm doing a presentation for my master's thesis, And I think like whether it be like big or small, I don't know. I think it just really varies. I don't really think I have a one single moment that I can pinpoint as being my proudest as of right now. Yeah.
Brian?
Um, Kind of a bit on the same lines as Jane, where maybe that's just the way that we're hardwired, which is why we're teammates. But yeah, there is no like proudest moment, and maybe that comes from like my history of competing, where it's like for some people it's like, well, my proudest moment is I won this, and it's like, okay, well, next year that event's happening again. What if you don't win it? Like, is are you unworthy now? Are you unvalidated now? So I try not to let those things like that validate me in terms of my worth and my experience. More so, it's just like you take all those moments that maybe you're proud of, and maybe those things that other people use to validate you, and you just use those things as your stepping stone. Where it's like those are not. I don't like to put any of those things on a pedestal. And instead, those are things that once you achieve it, it's okay. Well, now that's a step. Now I'm on top of that step, and I'm not even thinking about those things. I'm looking at the steps up ahead because I'm gonna keep aiming high.
All right.
Yeah, you know, I think I realize I don't have moments that I'm particularly proud of. I think the way my brain operates is that you are supposed to do this. You know, like we're already meant to do this, and it's like, okay, I want to celebrate this moment, but it's not like I put myself into that narrative saying that, oh, I am proud of this. It's like, okay, these are great moments that we do celebrate and that we hold space for and that we do you know, recognize, but you know, I don't feel like I have to put myself into that narrative.
Wow. Great, great answer. And I just realized that I said proudest moment. Yes, you know, we go through life, there's moment that we are very proud at that time, but that moment keep changing. The proudest, right? You know, tomorrow I might be proud on something. I'm making progress, so I'm proud of that too, right? So yeah, I probably will need to rephrase this question later on.
I think it's also just asking three very creative people that question where for us to be like, well, I'm proud of this and I'm proud of this, and I think kind of holding on to that so strongly will be what gets you stuck in a status quo, will be what gets you stuck in that dogma. And like we as a team thrive so much on not being held back by any of that, not being handcuffed to anything. And in almost any way, whether it's in the creative profession or even, I have an accounting degree, you know, I'm not handcuffed by that either. Where some people's like, well, you're not using your degree. Like, yeah, it's a degree is a ticket of opportunity, not a handcuff to a profession. Um, and to kind of just keep pushing and as creatives to somehow find a way to make it all come full circle, which I think all three of us have, being on, this team as a nonprofit.
Why did you choose? Why did you create this organization as nonprofit instead of for profit?
Because I hustle for my people. I don't hustle my people.
Say it again.
I said I hustle for my people. I don't hustle my people. I've seen a lot of, and maybe this is particular to just the dance event space, the street dance event space, where I see a lot of people speak on the narrative that they do things for the community, right? And maybe they've got the same type of narrative as us, but then when you really show up to those spaces that they put together, it feels more exploitive than anything. And it's just like, are you really for the people? Or are you just here to exploit us for your own selfish, whatever it is? And and for me, it was just kind of being fed up and tired with that. But I'm not one to complain, so I just did something about it instead. So we curate something where, you know, we don't hustle the people, we're hustling for the people. And I think that's why we have the type of support that we do have and the platform that we do have, because you can't lie about this. I've been in the scene for almost 20 years now. It's not like, okay, my reputation with the community starts about a year ago when we did the nonprofit. No, my reputation and the branding with the scene started 20 years ago when I stepped in 10, 11 years old, and how I conducted myself all throughout in between, and who I chose to associate myself with. And now that we have this platform and this organization and what we choose to do and how we choose to do it.
The reason, like Brian was saying, so we wanted to give a space where we can have people from outside of our community be able to contribute to people who are within our community. We didn't want to make a living off of this. We didn't want to make any money off of this. But what we did want to do is be able to spread certain messages around. So for example, like what hip hop really is, what the street dance scene really is, why is it important for education? Why is it important for other people outside the community to understand it? We wanted to put light to those missions and values, to these events that we're holding, to really show the true power of hip hop and the street dance scene behind all of that. We wanted to show all of this to everyone. And whether we got profit or not profit, most of the times, like we don't really make anything off of it. Like that was kind of our mission, and that was our heart, and that was our goal, is to be able to do this for the community. So to take profit and value to, I mean, like to kind of care about the value system, at least for me, it was very like, it didn't really feel like it fit a purpose into our goals, or it wasn't like a goal that we had. It was never about how much money we can make off an event. It was never about how much profit that we can get out of something. It was always about how much that we can give.
Also, if my focus was to make money, I would have stayed an accountant.
Okay. I know that's the reason that people start a nonprofit, because they have a heart, right, to serve the community. And yeah, but somehow, some way, you will need to think about how to make money for that nonprofit or organization, how to raise money, how, right, so that you can survive. Right, if you don't have food to eat and things like that, how would you survive? How would the organization survive?
Yeah, and there's various business models to go to addressing that, where it doesn't have to be charging the attendees of those events who are members of our dance communities, some premium rate. You could get that through sponsorship, you could get that through endorsements, you could get that through consultation with these institutions and organizations, because these dances are in those spaces, like like I consult with Boston University, Harvard University, Tufts University, Boston College. I've done work with the U.S. Department of State. I've done work with the Boston Celtics. I've done work with these high caliber institutions and organizations. So when I work with them, it's like, okay, that to me, I'll use those opportunities with them to give maybe those full premium rates. But if I'm doing an event for the dance community, for the people that are of the same community I'm from, my main objective is not to charge them premium rates, because the work I do for them is cultural. The work I do for those other institutions and businesses and such are transactional. They want a piece of our culture, but these people that are actually in our culture, we're just here to celebrate our culture together. Those other outside institutions aren't here to celebrate our culture with us. They just want a piece of the pie. So I think it's also very empowering for our communities to work and to have our business model kind of in that frame, where it's when we say it's for the people, this is really for the people.
All right, so if people want to follow your footsteps, right, they want to become a dancer, or they will become a curator for the event and things like that, what are the 3 things that you would suggest them to do or begin? Let's start with Bao.
So just to echo what they were saying, like we are doing it for the people that we have, these relationships with in our community. So the first thing I would always recommend to people is, show up and show out for your people. Like support your local grassroots communities and their events, and show them that you do care. Like that's, if you don't know who you're servicing and who you're doing all of this for, what's the point of your work? So I've been going to events and, supporting my home community back in Portland for a really long time, and being able to do that here and having that being like a transplant here in Boston, it doesn't feel any different, you know, like I still want to show up to my community and see what they're doing and supporting their mission and their goals. The second thing is question everything. Like, you know, if you're going to approach something, if you're going to do what we do here as creatives, you have to question everything. Like, why does this happen? You know, why are you doing this a certain way? Like, why do we do this in our community? And like, why is this important? To get that knowledge and that understanding and that context is really vital to thriving in like these different types of cultural like communities. You can't just come in and do whatever you want. I mean, you can, but you know, you're not going to get very far. So I would say, like, you know, get that knowledge, question everything, and we have the resources to provide to you if you do want to learn from us, from the culture. Maybe the last thing is more on just like the creating side, is to just do it. If you have time to contemplate, you have time to think about it, you have time to do it. So just try it out, follow your gut, follow your instincts. I've been doing that my whole life, and you know, doing pretty okay. So yeah, those are my 3 things.
Jane?
I think for me, number 1, search for things that inspire you. And that doesn't necessarily mean anything like that's within the field. Like, it could, for example, if you're a dancer, it might be a poem that inspires you. If you are a poet, it might be the way some scientist breaks down the molecular molecules that inspires you. You know, there are a lot of different ways, and there are a lot of different types of inspiration out there. But there will be things that resonate with you, and I think it's important to find out for yourself which things resonate, and for you to go about your craft in that way. And my number 2 advice is never follow anyone's path, and always create your own. I think it's good to take inspirations from people. I think it's good to take quotes, good to take things that they have done, learn from other people's mistakes, you know, bits and pieces. But I think in terms of really curating what you want to do for yourself, you have to know who you are, and you have to know what you want to do. And through those things, you're creating your own path. And I think that's essentially the way that you would want to go. Yeah.
Brian?
Kimchi, may I ask you to repeat that question, please?
All right. So the 3 things that you would suggest others to do or to begin if they want to follow your footsteps.
Okay. I say the first thing would be dance-wise, to make it your mission to become as skilled as possible in whatever art form it is you practice. And I say that because there are things you learn in the craftsmanship of being an artist, whether you're a dancer or whatever dance style it is, or maybe you're a visual painter, or maybe you like to knit, whatever it is. Like, your art form, whatever art form you practice, strive to achieve the highest skill level of that you can, because that journey that you take in that art form, you're going to learn so many things, and not just learn things within that art form, but you're going to learn about yourself, and you're going to learn some real timeless classic principles that are going to apply to so many other areas of your life. And we see it all the time with, you know, maybe it's only cool when a famous athlete endorses it, rather than coming from a dancer like me or something, you know. But if you look across the board, those are things that parallel. You know, Kobe Bryant calls it Mamba mentality, and we celebrate that. But if you were to meet somebody who just started 2 years ago and they have that same mentality, you don't quite celebrate it because they're only 2 years in and they haven't achieved that high caliber of skill yet. But their principle and their mind frame is already on that path. So that's the first one: attain the highest skill level you can in whatever art form or craft it is that you practice. Number 2, learning to learning to articulate. I think as creatives, we could have some of the craziest ideas ever, but if you can't articulate it, how are you going to share that idea? How are you going to share that gold? Um, Especially if there's somebody from outside of your realm of things. Like if we're speaking just amongst dances, maybe we can use a particular vocabulary that they all understand. But now, now we're talking to you, Kimchi. How can we articulate our ideas so that you can understand it? Because you don't come from the dance space that we're in. Um, and try to get you to understand where we're coming from and where we want to take it, and and not just the importance of sharing your ideas, but whatever journey I'm on and whatever journey you're on, you know somewhere along, maybe there's an intersection of those two roads, and right now we're at that intersection. That's why we're on your podcast right now. So it's like, okay, like your journey might have nothing to do with dancing and such, and our journey might have nothing to do with whatever yours is, but there's an intersection point, and at that intersection point, okay, we can collaborate and we can build something beautiful. And then, all right, cool, after this, and we go about our journeys. Who knows, maybe our journeys cross again. But just to articulate and to be able to express your vision, and I think that's super important as dancers, because we have that from a physical perspective. We have the, oh, it'd be crazy if I did this and I do this, and it's like, okay. And instead of articulation, which is more of a mental approach, we think of it as execution, the physical approach of our dance and of our movement. So skill level, articulation, and I think the last thing, just as a creative, and just I mean, I'm trying to think of a. I don't want to say as an entrepreneur. I don't want to say as a visionary. I feel like those words are just thrown around so loosely now. But just like as a creative, as somebody that's paving new ways, as somebody that's not stuck in the status quo, as somebody that's not trapped by dogma, um, to not be afraid to be misunderstood. Like if you're paving a new way, you are going to be misunderstood. Not everyone's going to understand, and that's okay. Because if you know your purpose and you know the direction that you're going into, even if you can't see far ahead, but you're in line with your purpose and such, you're going to be misunderstood, and you just have to have faith in yourself and to keep going in that way. And at the end of it all, everyone else is going to catch that late bus to you.
The last part I really, really like. So I'm going to use it. I'm going to use the word leader, right? Instead of, you said you don't want to use the entrepreneur, you don't want to use the word
Visionary.
visionary or whatever. I would say the
I
leader,
don't.
because you
I
the
don't.
one, you lead your own path. Yeah. So basically, any path require a leader, somebody who walk first, right? So I would say this, as a leader, it's okay to be misunderstood, right? Because if you're afraid people to misunderstand you, then you would not try to do things that people might not understand you yet, right? It's required time for them to catch up to
Yeah.
what you're thinking.
Right.
So I really like that. That's
I don't like the word leader either.
what's the word? What's the right word? What's the word that you prefer?
I'm a millennial man. I don't like those words thrown at me.
Okay. I don't know. I don't know what
Trailblazer?
word. Huh?
Trailblazer?
I don't know.
Trailblazer? Yeah.
I just
A
I just want to
trailblazer
be
is a trailblazer. Yeah, I'm gonna use that word too. Okay,
I
trailblazer.
just want to be that little kid that came onto the scene 10 years ago.
Okay. All right. So now is the time to have some fun. So Bao is going to share with us some work that the team, the Flavors Continue, has been working on or has produced in the past. So Tao.
All right, so I want to share a video that I put together from an event that all of us kind of had our hands in. It's not our event per se, but we did have Brian as the master of ceremony, and he was also helping consult them on how to present this event to the public and to our community. We had Jane, who was also a battle contestant who made it to the finals, which is crazy. I was just kind of on the media side of things, so helping produce this visual so that folks kind of like understand what goes on at these events. But it is called Overdrive, which is the event that happens annually. It's put on by students at Boston University. A portion of the event during the day is really focused on the freestyle side of things. So it's a competition. Folks come and compete. The night show is more geared towards the choreography side. So they put on a showcase, and folks can kind of enjoy that aspect of it as well. But I'll go ahead and share that with y'all.
This one I beg you, baby, ja, ba, da. Me, I no get time, I did that, ba, da. That cover my face, calling me la, ba, da. Big man, we do be where I, ba, da. Tell me, what's it up? You are up, all the better. The cash, back to put, I go feet, die for nothing. What's it up? You are up, all the better. The cash, back to put in.
Our competition does not validate how good you are. Just like that. You know what validates you as a dancer? The love of the
Plenty survive with this. Just to make sure money.
Is that Bao?
But my people then go say I know one buy, I know
Is
one
it?
die, I know one payment, I want enjoy, I want job life, I want buy motor, I want build house, I still want to know. Tell me, what's it called? You are good, all the best. It can take, ride the book, I know people, you are now.
Crowd, can I get your help on this? 10.
So cool. That is so cool. I could not recognize Bao.
Yeah, so I'm on like the kind of the back end of this project. I spent a lot of the day just like getting these really great moments of people enjoying their time there, and you know that's how I approach a lot of my projects. Is like I'm very intentional with what I put out, and for this particular project, I really wanted to showcase how much people enjoy being in these spaces together. And you can tell it's like a very generational thing too. You have all the kids up at the front. You have like a lot of folks who have been in the scene for a long time, and you know, like that's being passed on to them. And yeah, that's, you know, we do a little bit of everything, and we're very multifaceted people here on the team. I think that really showcases a lot through what we do for the community.
I also want to add in that this event for us was the beginning of what we had planned going into 2020. But obviously, due to COVID-19 and the coronavirus scares and such, we actually had 4 other events of this caliber planned out and ready to go But all 4 of those, which, I think one of them was like 2 weeks ago. There was 2 that we had in the same weekend, the first weekend of April, and then one mid-April. So between those 4 that we had, outside of the one that you just saw, all had to be canceled or postponed because of COVID-19 or the coronavirus. So, I mean, we put in a lot of work to kind of get these things off the ground, and they were all ready to go. But, sometimes you gotta stay humble or life humbles you.
That's what we can do right now, right? Most of us are stay at home, and we have to rethink or rest. It is time to recuperate or learn new skills, right? So how can people reach out to you, either individually or as a group?
We are pretty active on our Facebook and Instagram, both at The Flavor Continues. We're also on LinkedIn, and we also have a Patreon page as well. So there's lots of ways for folks to support us, whether it is through, like sharing our content or donating financially if they're able to and they have the capacity to do so. Even just reaching out to us if they have questions about what we do. That way we can create those connections like we are doing with you, and we get to be part of this really wonderful podcast. So again, anyone can really find us through at The Flavor Continues.
At The Flavor Continues.
Yes.
Has a nice ring to it. At The Flavor Continues. Well, that's it for today. We hope that you enjoyed this episode. Please share with friends and family members, and also on social media. Use the hashtag Asian Women of Power. Until next time, live life loud.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Asian Women of Power podcast. We encourage you to apply what you've learned here today to make your life a little bit better every day. For more tips, tools, practical ideas, and conversations around a business, life, and relationships, so that you too can live life loud, we invite you to join the Asian Women of Power Facebook group at www.joinasianwomenofpower.com.